Discover the incredible, life-changing love story that will touch your heart like never before. In the heart of a small Midwestern town, Sarah, a single mother hustling through life, faced the daily grind with an undeniable resilience. At 32, she worked 2 jobs, waitressing at the diner during the day and cleaning offices at night just to provide for her spirited 7-year-old son, Jake. Their little home, a cozy nest filled with mismatched furniture and colorful drawings, echoed with laughter from countless games of make-believe. As Jake donned his superhero cape, he filled the air with dreams that soared higher than the tallest buildings. The excitement in town surged when Jake's school announced a mentorship program. Derek, a charismatic war veteran turned entrepreneur, was set to lead it. To Jake, being mentored by Derek felt like hitting the jackpot. With wide eyes sparkling with hope, he turned to Sarah, his voice bubbling over with excitement as he spoke of dreams that danced in his imagination. But Sarah felt a tightening in her chest. She fretted about the potential prejudice lurking in their tight-knit community, where the lines between the haves and have-nots stood stark and unforgiving, unyielding. Jake poured his heart into every application answer and practiced his elevator pitch, a beaming smile plastered on his face. Yet, Sarah wrestled with self-doubt and judgment. Would townsfolk see her as the lowly single mom, or would they acknowledge the love and strength she poured into their lives? Just as Sarah tried to shake these fears, Derek expressed genuine interest in Jake. Veering into the tangled web of their complicated relationship, everything came to a head during the town's annual festival, Danvers Days, a vibrant celebration filled with laughter, food, and music. But joy morphed into tension when Sarah saw a group of kids snubbing Jake, their parents' disdain for her evident in their cold gazes. In a moment that ignited a fire within her, Sarah stepped forward, her voice rising above the chatter. "He deserves the same chance as anyone else. Just because I'm struggling doesn't make him less worthy." The crowd fell silent, her words hanging heavy in the air. Before long, whispers swirled around them, igniting discussions of worth and dignity. Sarah, once an invisible figure, transformed into a fierce protector, challenging the status quo. The townsfolk had no choice but to confront their biases. Each startled face reflected the uncomfortable truths they carefully avoided. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. With the festival drawing to a close, shadows of doubt still loomed over Sarah and Derek. They stood at a crossroads, both unsure of how to navigate the friendship that had blossomed between them. Would they be able to uplift one another amidst the fervor of community sentiment? Summer was fading, taking with it the town's lingering biases, but the question loomed: what would this mean for Jake's dreams? Would hope be enough to shatter the barriers that kept them apart? As the last echoes of laughter faded from the festival, the sun dipped low, casting a warm golden hue over the town. Sarah stood there, her heart racing, thoughts tumbling like leaves in the wind. She had stirred the pot, shaken things up, but would it be enough? The faces in the crowd haunted her, some kind, others cold. She felt like she had stepped into a storm, not knowing if she'd emerge stronger or more battered. Meanwhile, Derek's eyes flickered with admiration as he turned to Sarah. "What you did back there, it was brave." His voice was low, filled with sincerity. She looked at him, noticing the way he carried himself, confident yet vulnerable. They both faced judgment, though in different ways. "I just couldn't stand by and watch them treat Jake like he was nothing," she admitted, biting her lip. "He deserves a chance, like any other kid. He has so much potential." A deep breath escaped her, and she felt a sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could challenge the town's narrow-mindedness together. Derek nodded, understanding flashing across his features. Yet, he seemed to wrestle with something unseen. "You inspire him, you know. That's more important than any mentorship program." He softened, the warmth reaching his eyes. Just then, a small figure came bounding toward them, a blur of energy and excitement. Mom! Derek! Jake's laughter filled the air, breaking the tension like a ray of sunshine piercing through clouds. He grinned widely, clutching a half-eaten funnel cake, his mouth smeared with sugary powder. Did you see me on the bouncy castle? I was flying. Sarah knelt down, her worries melting like the evening light. I did, buddy. You were amazing. Jake beamed at her praise, but then his gaze shifted to Derek. Are you going to help me become a superhero? Derek knelt to meet Jake's gaze, his brow furrowing playfully. Being a superhero takes more than a cape. It means standing up for what's right, just like your mom did today. In that moment, something shifted in Sarah. She saw not just Jake's adoration for Derek but the glimmer of possibility. Could this man, with his strength and calm resolve, help guide Jake and even her? But as they stood there sharing a laugh, a familiar couple walked past, their disdain unmistakable as they whispered to one another, casting judgmental glances at Sarah and her son. The joy that had filled Sarah moments before began to thread a painful tension into the air. She felt her heart drop. Mom, why do they look at you like that? Jake's voice, innocent but probing, pierced through her thoughts. She took a moment to gather her emotions, desperately searching for the right words. Some people don't understand, Jake. But what matters is that we know who we are, Sarah replied, forcing a smile, knowing it was important to shield him from the heavier truths. As night enveloped them, Sarah and Derek exchanged looks filled with unspoken challenges. They had both faced judgment, yet together perhaps they could bring a new light where there had been darkness. Yet, deep down, Sarah knew the fight was far from over. The approaching autumn would soon bring more than just changing leaves. The community's heart needed to shift too, and the task felt monumental. Derek, what if they never change? What if it's too much? Her voice shook slightly, echoing the fears that loomed larger than the upcoming winter. Then we fight harder, he stated firmly, determination igniting in his eyes in a way that comforted her. A quiet resolve settled within Sarah as she nodded slowly, feeling the weight of companionship begin to lift her spirit. However, just as hope began to spark, a crash reverberated from the festival's remains, shouting and chaos sending waves through the lingering crowd. What was that? Jake asked, gripping Sarah's hand tight, fear churned in her stomach. Come on, let us find out. As they hurried toward the sound, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something pivotal was about to unfold, a turn of events that might change their lives forever. What awaited them just beyond the crowd, and would their bond be enough to withstand the storm? As Sarah, Derek, and Jake pushed through the throng of festival-goers, the noise grew louder, an ominous mix of shouts and panic. The festive atmosphere that had just enveloped them moments ago now felt like a distant memory, replaced by confusion and a sense of urgency. Mom, I'm scared. Jake squeezed her hand tighter. His innocent eyes, usually bright with curiosity, were clouded with worry. She knelt down again, trying to cover his fear with reassurance she barely felt herself. It's okay, Jake. We'll figure this out. Just stay close to us, she said, forcing a calmness into her voice. She cast a glance at Derek, who seemed resolute as he led the way, shoulders squared against the unseen tide of chaos. They maneuvered around people who were huddled together, pointing and gasping. A surge of adrenaline pumped through Sarah's veins. She had dealt with adversity before, yet not quite like this. What could be happening? The fear for her son mixed with protective instincts that sent her heart racing as they drew closer to the source of the commotion. Emerging from the crowd, they reached a small clearing where a group of people hovered around something on the ground. Sarah's heart dropped at the sight. A table had toppled over, its contents scattered. In the center lay a boy, no older than 12, crying out in pain. Someone help! A nearby adult yelled, her voice strained with panic. He fell off the stage. Sarah felt the pit in her stomach deepen. The boy's face was flushed, twisting in agony. She recognized him. Eli. The same Eli who had pushed Jake on the swings just the other day, with a friendly grin that exuded confidence. What if Jake had seen this happen? Sarah ran to the boy's side, kneeling beside him. "Eli, it's going to be all right," she said, her voice shaking but steady. The sobering reality of her own panic was quelled by her instinct to comfort. She touched his arm gently. "Can you tell me where it hurts?" He gritted his teeth, tears spilling down his cheeks. "My leg, I think it's broken," he gasped, his breath hitching. The crowd buzzed with energy and fear, but in that moment, it narrowed to just her and Eli. Amidst the chaos, Derek stepped forward. "What can we do?" he asked, his voice low but strong. Sarah looked up, finding support in his steady presence. They shared a look, both aware this was only the beginning of grappling with a community gripped with fear and prejudice. "Someone needs to call an ambulance," she said, glancing around. Individuals flinched at the thought of action. They were frozen, watching, but not helping. "I'll do it," Derek said before sprinting off, quickly fading into the crowd which still buzzed with uncertainty. Sarah turned her focus back to Eli, leaning closer. "Stay with me, Eli. Help is on the way," she urged, her heart aching not just for this boy but the countless others who might feel the sting of judgment and pain that followed. Minutes felt like hours. The sounds of sirens pierced through the air, urging the crowd to step aside. When the paramedics arrived, a flurry of efficient movements began. Sarah watched as they lifted Eli onto a stretcher. He winced but still gave her a small, brave smile. "Thanks, Miss Sarah," he murmured, instantly tugging at her heartstrings. As they wheeled him away, uncertainty loomed large, opposition and acceptance tangled together. Sarah and Derek held fast to their resolve, aware that they were fighting for more than just one boy's recovery. They were striving to change the heart of a community that had grown numb. Just then, Sarah felt a tug on her sleeve. It was Jake, eyes wide, searching for answers. "Mom, is Eli going to be okay?" Her mind raced. How could she protect her son from the harsh realities of their town? She took a deep breath, mustering every ounce of optimism she had. "Yes, Jake. He's going to be all right," she replied, letting love and hope seep through each word. But deep down, she knew the question lingered in the air, unchecked. In that moment, the ground beneath them felt shaky. What more would they have to face? The night had only begun, and already, the clouds were gathering. As they started to walk back, Sarah felt the weight of the world pressing down. How would they confront their community? Would they be enough to spark change? Derek returned, determination evident in his eyes. "We can't stop here. This is just the start." A spark ignited in Sarah's heart. But could she muster the strength to challenge everything she feared? And what lay ahead in this fight for compassion and understanding? The crowd was still restless, buzzing with whispers that echoed the tension Sarah felt inside. She looked down at Jake, who clutched her hand tightly, his little body shaking slightly. "Let us find somewhere quiet," she said softly, steering him away from the chaos. They settled onto a nearby bench, a makeshift refuge from the turmoil. Surrounding them, the festival continued, though it felt distant and muted against the weight of uncertainty. Sarah inhaled deeply, feeling the cool night air brush against her cheeks. It was clear they needed to talk. She couldn't shield her son forever from the harsh realities beyond this moment. "Mom." Jake's small voice trembled a little, breaking the silence. "What happened to Eli?" Her heart twisted. She wanted to shield him from that nagging fear, the fear of knowing that life can turn in an instant. The truth was heavy, and she wasn't sure how to carry it amidst their already shaken world. "Eli got hurt, honey. But the paramedics are helping him right now," she replied gently, searching for the right words to ease his concern without downplaying the severity of it all. "Will he be okay?" Jake pressed, his eyes wide, full of innocence and dread. Sarah hesitated, feeling that familiar weight in her chest. "I believe he will be, but sometimes we just have to wait and see." She forced a smile, hoping it infused some of her certainty into him. Jake seemed to absorb her words, furrowing his brow as his young mind processed the situation. Then came an unexpected question that struck a chord deep within her: are people going to be mad at Eli for falling? The thought struck Sarah like a lightning bolt. Would people lay blame when they should be offering kindness? No, sweetie. It was an accident. Things like this can happen, and it's not Eli's fault. She felt the flicker of anger rise inside her at the possibility of cruelty. How could anyone be anything but compassionate? Just then, Derek returned, an urgency in his eyes that threatened to unearth her resolve. I've been talking to a few parents. There's a lot of panic. They want answers. His voice lowered as he leaned closer. And some of them are looking for someone to blame. Blame Eli? Sarah's voice felt like an accusation. For falling. She could feel her heart beating faster, frustration boiling. It's irrational, I know, Derek replied, his gaze flicking back to the crowd, full of fear and anger. But sometimes people react that way when they don't understand. Sarah felt her chest tighten. It was maddening. How could they demonize a boy who was just having fun? We have to do something, she said, her voice steadier now. We've got to make sure they see him for who he is. A child, like Jake. You're right, Derek affirmed, resolve clicking into place. This could be our moment to show them that compassion starts with understanding. Jake watched them, his small brows furrowed in confusion but also something else glimmering hope. Can we help Eli? He asked quietly. Of course, buddy, Sarah said, her heart swelling at his innate kindness even in the midst of turmoil. We'll do everything we can. As the three of them stood together, Sarah felt an unfamiliar sense of purpose igniting within. They had waited too long for change, a change that started with empathy, connection, and the courage to speak louder than the fear looming around them. Just then, a loud voice broke through the crowd, cutting through the festival's noise. Everyone, listen up. It was one of the festival organizers, red-faced and visibly shaken. We need to talk about what happened and how we can support Eli. Sarah's heart raced at the sound of his words. Perhaps this was the moment, the conversation she had hoped would emerge from the confusion. A chance for their community to come together, to heal. But as the murmurs grew louder, a familiar face appeared in the crowd, filled with judgment and disdain. Would they stand together, or would old prejudices rise from the ashes? Her pulse quickened. Could they turn this tide? Could they transform this chaos into a drive for compassion? And just as uncertainty lingered in the air, she felt Jake tug on her sleeve again. Mom, are we going to join them? In that moment, Sarah realized this was not just about Eli. Their journey had just begun, and it might lead them somewhere they never expected. So many voices were at stake, and she couldn't let fear guide them anymore. Absolutely, Jake, she replied, her voice steady as she took a deep breath. Together, we can change everything. With her heart pounding in her chest, they stepped forward into the fray, ready to face whatever came next. What would the community say? Would they choose understanding or sow more division? It was time to find out. The crowd settled into an uneasy hush, all eyes now trained on the festival organizer standing high on a makeshift platform. Sarah felt the tension around her, a living thing coiling tightly in her stomach. With each passing moment, she scanned the sea of faces, searching for understanding, for a spark of empathy that might break through the anxious chatter. The organizer cleared his throat, a shaky sound that barely resonated above the whispers. We're here tonight to address the incident involving Eli. It's crucial we come together as a community. Our actions now will determine how our children see each other going forward. Thank you, Sarah murmured to herself, her heart pulsing with the hope that this could be the moment they all needed. As he spoke, more faces emerged in the crowd, expressions flickering between concern and judgment. She recognized some parents, friends, neighbors, but it was those strangers, those who only knew Eli through hearsay, that made her heart race even faster. We need to think about Eli, about the message we send to our kids, he continued, his voice steadier now. We can't allow fear to breed prejudice. An accident should not become a weapon against a boy who simply wanted to have fun. Derek leaned closer to Sarah, their shoulders brushing, as he whispered, "He is saying the right things. This could work." But just then, that familiar face slipped through the edges of the gathering, lips curling into a sneer. It was Mrs. Thompson, the very embodiment of judgment. Sarah remembered the way she always looked at children, skeptical, as if they were more mischief than innocence. "That boy is reckless," Mrs. Thompson shouted, her voice rising above the others, slicing through the fragile atmosphere like a sword. "His behavior put everyone at risk. What kind of example are we setting by defending him?" A gasp rippled through the crowd, tension snapping like a thin wire. Anxiety washed over Sarah, and she locked eyes with Jake. His innocence hung in the air, tangible yet fragile, like a soap bubble at the mercy of the wind. "Mom," he whispered, a question in his eyes she couldn't bear to answer. The fear of judgment was all-consuming now, and it filled the space between them like smoke. "Jake, look at me," Sarah urged gently, crouching to his level. "This is why we're here. We have to show them that being kind is more important than being right." He nodded, though his small face betrayed a mixture of uncertainty and fragile hope. "Can we help Eli, then?" "Yes," she whispered fiercely, feeling a raw determination surge within her. "We're going to make sure everyone understands they need to champion him, not blame him." As the crowd began to murmur among themselves, Sarah's heart sank and soared. This moment felt pivotal, as if she was poised on the edge of something that could change everything. Would they stand with her, or would they cling to the fear that had gripped them? Suddenly, a light broke through the haze. "We all make mistakes." A young voice called from the back, belonging to a child, possibly Eli's friend. Eli was having fun. He didn't mean to fall. A ripple of murmurs followed, and for the first time that night, Sarah sensed a shift. Encouraged, she stepped forward, her voice clear amid the murmurs. "What happened to Eli is a reminder that we're all human. It's our job, as adults, to teach our kids compassion over judgment. Let us not forget that." The words hung in the air, resonating deep within the hearts gathered. Slowly, heads began to nod. Sarah could feel the tides turning, but she also sensed the struggle ahead. Mrs. Thompson wouldn't back down easily. The fight wasn't over. The organizer looked at Sarah, an unspoken question evident in his eyes. "Will you join us?" he asked, extending a hand towards her as he moved to the forefront. Sarah glanced at Jake, who watched with wide eyes, filled with trust. This moment could ignite change, even if they faced opposition. "Yes," she said firmly, stepping toward the man on the platform, their fingers brushing as she took his hand. "We will." But before they could fully embrace the moment, a distant shout broke the atmosphere once more, ricocheting through the crowd. "What about Eli's family? They need to take responsibility too." A collective gasp echoed. Sarah's heart stopped, and for a moment, she could barely breathe. What would this mean for Eli? Would compassion be drowned out by the voices of anger? The community was divided, and as much as it hurt, she realized that their battle had truly just begun. Could they truly unite stories of empathy against the loud echoes of blame? Would the love for a child triumph over the despair threatening to take root? She felt Jake squeeze her hand tighter. "Mom, what do we do next?" Drawing in a deep breath, Sarah looked out at the faces before her, so many stories entwined with hers. "We keep fighting for what's right, Jake. Through the noise, we find our truth." With all the uncertainty still swirling, she held on to her son's hand with fierce determination. What awaited them now? The crowd's tension thickened, a nearly palpable weight that pressed down on Sarah's chest. She stood at the forefront, her heart pounding in unison with the uncertain whispers around her. It felt as if the moment had stretched into eternity, each second filled with both hope and dread. Would this fragile thread of empathy hold strong, or would it unravel under pressure? Maybe we should just go. Derek's voice broke through, a low murmur tinged with doubt. He shifted slightly, that familiar furrow returning to his brow. It doesn't seem like they want to listen. No, Sarah replied firmly, shaking her head. We can't back down now. This isn't just about Eli. It's about all of us. It's about how we choose to react. Her words hung in the air, and behind her, a small gathering of parents began to move forward, drawn by the conviction in her voice. They were not much at first, just a handful, but their presence felt like a small beacon of light. Eli's family does deserve to be held accountable, shouted Mrs. Thompson again, her voice shrill, desperate to snuff out whatever flicker of hope had ignited. They should be taught him better. Why not try understanding instead? It was another parent. Sarah recognized him as Greg, and his voice rang out with unexpected force. He stepped forward, joining Sarah and Derek. What happened to Eli was an accident, a terrible one. But blaming a child for wanting to play is not how we help. The murmurs grew louder. Some were whispers of agreement, while others continued to cling to their apprehension. Sarah's heart raced as she realized how crucial this moment was. People were starting to think, starting to reconsider their stances, but they needed more than words. They needed direction. They needed action. Listen, Sarah called out, her voice carrying above the growing hubbub. We all have stories. We all have children who make mistakes. If we close our hearts now, what message do we send? If Eli falls through our cracks, what does that say about us as a community? Silence enveloped the crowd, and Sarah felt the intensity of their gazes upon her. She could see flickers of recognition, of shame, of empathy, moments of realization. Let us meet Eli's family together. Let us show them we care. Let us go to Eli's home not to point fingers but to lift them up, she continued, conviction boiling in her chest. We can offer our support. We can show our children what compassion looks like. More heads started to nod, a collective crescendo forming around her. I'll go. A mother shouted from the rear, her face animated with emotion. I'll help. Me too. Came another voice, followed by a wave of agreement echoing through the assembled group. Sarah turned to Jake, who looked on with a hint of confusion but also pride. They were standing on the brink of something bigger than themselves. It was no longer just about defending Eli, it was about healing and coming together as a community. Tension still clung to the air, palpable and raw, as Mrs. Thompson's face twisted with disapproval. This is madness. You think you can save him with mere sympathy? But Sarah stood taller, her heart steady now. Yes. Kindness can be the strongest thing of all, Mrs. Thompson. It's not us versus Eli, it's all of us together. Now the real battle began. Could they maintain this momentum? Could they break through the walls of fear and prejudice standing in their way? As the murmurs began to shift toward agreement, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could be the change they wished to see. Jake reached out, confidence blossoming in his small voice as he clearly stated, "Can we start tomorrow?" With an entire community at a crossroads, Sarah caught a deep breath, ready for the challenges ahead. They weren't finished yet. This was only the beginning, but as they prepared to disperse, Sarah heard the sound of a child's laughter being cut short by another shout in the distance. A sharp voice rang out, slicing through the newfound camaraderie. Does anyone care about the truth? The air turned heavy again, and Sarah's heart sank. What lay ahead? Felt uncertain, like a shadow dancing just beyond the light. How would they face the impending storm? Would they hold strong together, or would fear tear them apart? With hope clinging stubbornly to her spirit, Sarah knew they had to be ready for whatever came next. The atmosphere shifted when the echo of that harsh question filled the air. Sarah's heart raced, dread pooling in her stomach. She turned slowly, scanning the crowd for the source. A boy stood apart from the rest, his face set and fierce, the remnants of innocence slipping away with every challenge he posed. Who even cares if we know the truth? he spat. Eli just gets sympathy because he's the one who got hurt. His words struck like ice, freezing the moment. Mrs. Thompson's eyes lit up in response, eager for something to latch onto. See? Even the kids know it. She exclaimed, her voice full of satisfaction. Why should we support a family that clearly failed their child? Sarah felt her breath hitch. The young boy didn't know Eli's family story. He didn't understand the complexities of their struggle, nor did the crowd. They were entrenched in opinions shaped by fear and anger. Wait. Sarah stepped forward, raising her hand to calm the uproar that began to swell once again. Can we take a moment? Can we think about what this means? Her voice carried frustration and tenderness all at once. She approached the boy, her eyes softening. What if Eli is feeling just as scared and alone as you? His defiance wavered, and for the briefest moment, she thought she saw a crack forming in his hardened demeanor. Do you think you wanted this to happen? She pressed gently. The boy squirmed under her gaze, discomfort flickering across his face. I guess I don't know. It just seems unfair. That's true. Life often feels unfair, especially for kids. But how we handle our anger, our fear, that's up to us, she replied, appealing to the compassion she hoped still lived in him. The crowd was silent now, their attention caught in a fragile web of connection. Sarah seized the moment. Let us not make Eli just another name on a list. Let us discover the truth together, not through blame, but through understanding. Let us teach our children what it means to lift others up. At that, a few parents, moved by her passion, nodded in agreement. They were beginning to listen, beginning to realize the depth of their worries and how they had clouded their judgment. That it felt like the tide was shifting, but just as it seemed they were making progress, Mrs. Thompson stepped in, her voice sharp and dismissive. You think sympathy will solve everything? What about accountability? Our kids need to learn the consequences of their actions. No one is denying that. Greg responded, stepping forward beside Sarah, his voice steady. But blame alone cannot heal. We need to foster a space where we can all talk, where Eli can find the support he desperately needs. It starts with us. Their words broke through the tension, sparks of hope igniting in the crowd. But Sarah knew their journey was far from over. The walls of prejudice and misunderstanding still loomed large. She could feel the weight of the community's hesitation, and she feared it might all fall apart before they could build something meaningful. Tomorrow, let South gather at the park, Sarah called out, her voice steady despite the quaking in her heart. Bring your stories, your questions. Bring your kids. We can listen to each other and learn how to act, together. A soft murmur erupted among the crowd, and she held her breath, watching the expressions shift. Would they take this chance? Or would the shadows of fear pull them back? Just as an overwhelmed child began to speak up, Sarah saw a flash of emotion, a mother in the back, tears in her eyes. The bell of reality rang so clearly. But amidst the flickering hope, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was approaching, that the truth would not be easily uncovered. She caught sight of the boy again, anger bubbling back beneath the surface. Their paths were still tangled, but was there enough time to untie the knots? The moment hung heavy with unspoken possibilities, the crowd's future still uncertain. And as night fell, Sarah felt that restless urge rise within her. We must act, and quickly, or the truth will slip away, she whispered quietly to herself, the weight of responsibility settling heavily on her shoulders. What would it take to bring everyone together? Would they stand united or break apart when faced with the truth? The ground felt shaky beneath her feet. Tomorrow held everything they wished for and feared. The sun rose slowly the next morning, spreading thin beams of light that danced over the town park. Sarah had arrived early, her nervousness wrapped tightly around her like a blanket. The park was beautiful, filled with blooming cherry blossoms, yet the sight felt heavy. She set up a small table with cups of lemonade, hoping to create an inviting atmosphere. But the knot in her stomach wouldn't loosen. As she stood there waiting, the memories from last night surged back: Mrs. Thompson's biting words, the boy's anger, and her own stirring desire to bridge the gap. Would this gathering truly make a difference? One by one, parents began to trickle in, cautiously at first, glancing around as if not quite sure what to expect. Sarah greeted each one with warmth, trying to chase away their hesitation. But the crowd still felt frail, like it could shatter if anyone spoke too loudly. "Good morning." Greg arrived, his husbandly confidence bringing a spark of light. "You did it, Sarah. Look at how many showed up." Sarah smiled, but her thoughts remained tangled. "They're here, but will they stay? Will they listen?" After a few more moments, the young boy from last night emerged, flanked by his mother. He stood at the entrance, fear etched into his small features. Sarah's heart ached for him. She knelt down, meeting his eye level. "Hey," she whispered, "I'm glad you came. What is your name?" "Jonah," he replied, hands stuffed in his pockets. "I mean, I don't know if I want to be here." "That's okay," she said, feeling an urge to reassure him. "It's hard to face things sometimes. But I believe we can find something better together." Jonah studied her, the conflict in his face clear. His mother, standing by, offered a supportive nod. The gathering officially began as Greg took the lead, warmly welcoming everyone. He spoke about unity and the importance of hearing each other. Some parents shared stories of their own struggles, revelations sparking in the air like fireflies, illuminating the darkness that had hung over them for too long. Each shared experience brought some comfort, slowly knitting their hearts closer. But Sarah knew they still needed to confront the raw edges, the unresolved emotions that could tear them apart. At last, after several stories, Sarah felt a surge of courage. "Can we talk about Eli?" She felt all eyes turn to her. "He is a part of this community, a person, not a statistic. How do you think he feels right now?" Silence fell thick and heavy, as if the question hung in the air, waiting to be answered. Jonah shifted uncomfortably, his gaze drifting downward. Finally, a mother from the crowd spoke up tentatively. "I want to understand, but it seems like Eli's family has done something wrong." Sarah took a deep breath, channeling the compassion she had felt the night before. Life is complex, especially for families facing incredible challenges. Making mistakes doesn't mean they deserve our scorn. Rumblings of discomfort echoed through the crowd, but Jonah looked up suddenly. "It's not fair to make him a villain for things he can't control." Encouraged by Jonah's words, the crowd started to voice their fears, their regrets. With each sentence, the walls began to crumble. Yet, amidst this breakthrough blossomed uncertainty. Mrs. Thompson stood rigid, arms crossed, her expression darkening. "It's all well and good to talk about understanding," she injected, "but don't we all need to protect our kids? We can't ignore the consequences." Tension crackled in the air, shifting the atmosphere once more. Sarah's heart raced. They were at the edge of unity, but could they really hold this fragile understanding together? "Maybe it starts with us." Jonah's voice, quieter but steady, cut through the air again. "Maybe if we just tried to be friends we could help Eli instead of judging him." Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. This kid, despite all his anger, had a heart of gold. The crowd began to stir, emotions swelling. Could they find a way forward? As the murmurs grew louder, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope, but also a heavy question linger. Would they be able to unify their voices into one that could speak up for Eli? Or would old fears yank them back into the shadows? As she stood there, vulnerable yet determined, she knew one thing: they had to find a way to bring light into Eli's darkness before it was too late. The park had transformed, but the real work was just beginning. What would happen when they ventured into the heart of truth? How far would they go to protect the spirit of a boy lost? The air was thick with tension, a palpable mix of hope and fear. Jonah's words hung over the crowd like a fragile banner, wavering between unity and division. Sarah took a moment to absorb the collective energy. Parents shuffled on their feet, glancing at one another as if weighing the gravity of this moment. "Let us keep talking," Sarah urged, her voice breaking through the uncertainty. "We need to share what's in our hearts. Only then can we find solutions." A father with steely eyes, arms crossed defensively, lifted his chin. "Fine, but what's the point? We can't just ignore reality. Eli's family is well, they've caused a lot of trouble. It's not possible to just wave a magic wand and make it all go away. Is that really how you want to approach this?" Sarah countered gently, her heart racing as she met his gaze. "Pretending everything is black and white makes it too easy to overlook how we got here. These conversations matter. Eli matters." A ripple of murmurs spread through the group. An older woman, her silver hair shimmering in the soft sunlight, spoke up. "I was once where you are. So quick to judge. But now I understand there is so much we don't see. There are layers to every situation, including Eli's." Jonah nodded, surprisingly candid for a boy his age. "People make mistakes. But everyone deserves a chance." His voice was soft yet powerful, feeling like a warm embrace that soothed the crowd's cold edges. Sarah sensed the shifting tide, a swell of understanding beginning to wash over them. "Yeah." Another parent chimed in with a hopeful edge drifting through his words. "What if we reached out to Eli's family? Offer support instead of condemnation?" The crowd began to buzz with possibilities. Conversations sparked like fireflies in the night, illuminating the dark corners of their collective hearts. Sarah could hardly believe how quickly they were breaking free from their prior isolation. And then, Mrs. Thompson spoke again, her tone harsher than before. "Support? That family doesn't deserve our help. We can't just ignore the past." Sinking back into the shadows, Sarah felt an internal struggle rise within her. "Mrs. Thompson," she stated, her voice now steadier, "isn't our job as a community to lift one another up? We're not asking for perfection, just compassion. We can't let fear be our guiding light." Jonah tapped his foot nervously but broke through the moment. "Look, my friend, Eli, he's just a kid. We have to understand what he's going through. He feels alone, just like I did when I faced my fears." A moment of silence followed, each parent wrestling with their own memories. They could all remember moments when they felt alone, misunderstood. The park once filled with cherry blossoms swaying gently in the warm breeze felt alive. Hearts were opening, and voices that once whispered feelings of bitterness now spoke of hope and possibility. "Let us stand together for Eli," Sarah urged, her heart swelling in her chest. "Let us show him that we believe in the beauty of second chances." Jonah's eyes sparkled with hope. "Can we have a real meeting, spend time with Eli? Understand him?" A mix of nods and hesitant smiles swept through the group. Such simple gestures, yet they felt monumental. In the back of the park, Mrs. Thompson remained, arms crossed and eyebrows knitted tightly. She was not convinced that as excitement and fear intertwined. Sarah glanced toward Jonah. He was grinning, and she couldn't help but feel encouraged by his bravery. Maybe this was the start of something more profound, but lurking beneath the surface, Sarah sensed the fragility of this unity. Would Mrs. Thompson continue to sow discord, or could she find a way to heal? As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the gathering, Sarah felt a blend of hope and anxiety. They were stepping onto a path of discovery and connection. Could they really bridge the divides that had haunted their community for so long? And as they prepared to speak to Eli's family, would they be ready to face the truth that lay ahead? As the sun set, casting its vibrant hues across the park, Sarah felt the warmth of hope enveloping her. The conversations among the parents had deepened, morphing into a collective resolve. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, not just for Eli, but for each one of them. The air hummed with an energy that felt exhilarating and terrifying all at once. "Tomorrow, we visit Eli's family," Sarah announced, her voice ringing with determination. She met each eye in the crowd, gathering strength from their combined presence. "We're going to show them that they are not alone in this." The crowd erupted in murmurs of agreement, some faces lighting up with renewed purpose. Jonah beamed, his youthful enthusiasm infectious. He tugged gently at Sarah's sleeve. "Can I go too? I want to be there for Eli." Sarah knelt beside him, feeling a swell of pride. "Absolutely, Jonah. You're such a brave friend." The others around them nodded, a sense of unity blossoming from the shared goal. This wasn't merely an attempt to support Eli, it was a step toward healing the community. Meanwhile, Mrs. Thompson's restraint simmered beneath the surface. Sarah could see her body tense, but a fire ignited in Sarah too. "We cannot let fear guide our actions. Eli deserves compassion, just like all of our children do," she exclaimed, feeling both the urgency and the weight of her message. "Eli didn't choose to fall. Kids make mistakes," another parent chimed in. "If we teach them through empathy instead of judgment, that's real accountability." The murmurs grew into a unified chorus, encouragement washing over those who had initially hesitated. As twilight wrapped around them, an unexpected wind passed through the trees, rustling the leaves and infusing the gathering with a sense of urgency. Sarah could sense that this was the turning point, the moment where they would pivot from division to action. "Let us gather at Eli's home first thing in the morning," Sarah proposed. "We can bring treats, flowers, whatever we need to show them that they're part of our community, that we stand together." A torrent of nods and excited voices erupted around her, an undeniable wave of solidarity. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah felt a deep gratitude. They had taken the first step. They were ready to embrace the truth and to band together. That night, Sarah sat at home, Jake curled up beside her, both of them filled with anticipation. As Jake shared wild dreams of what would happen the next day, Sarah couldn't help but smile. "You were so right today, buddy. You taught everyone how important it is to be there for our friends," she said, rubbing his back gently. "Like in the cartoons, Mom, where everyone bands together." Jake's eyes sparkled. "We can be heroes too." "Exactly," Sarah replied, her heart swelling with pride for her son. "That's what being a community is all about." The next morning dawned with a crispness that felt alive with promise. Sarah and Jake joined Derek at the park, their hearts beating as one, full of hope. The enthusiasm flowed around them like laughter, each participant eager to move toward change. As they approached Eli's house, a feeling of trepidation filled the air. The small, unassuming building sat quietly, the curtains drawing it into a world of its own. Sarah took a deep breath and knocked on the door. It creaked open slowly. A woman stood there, weariness etched across her face. "Hello," she said cautiously, unsure of what to expect. "Hi. I'm Sarah, and this is my son, Jake. We're here from the park," Sarah began, trying to project warmth and openness. "We wanted to see if Eli was okay, and to let you know that we're here for you, all of us." The woman's eyes softened, tears brimming as she stepped aside. "Come in, please." They entered, the air heavy with unspoken struggles. Eli sat limply on the couch, the remnants of bravery and hurt lingering. "Eli!" Jake exclaimed, rushing forward. "You're going to be okay. We've got friends here, and everyone wants to help." Eli's eyes met Sarah's, a spark of confusion and desire for connection flickering in them. "What's happening?" he asked, his brave facade cracking. Sarah knelt beside him. "We want to show you that you're not alone in this, Eli. And we believe in you. We're working together to make sure everyone sees how important compassion is." Tears streamed down Eli's cheeks. "I thought everyone would be mad." As Jake settled next to him, a tingling energy suffused the room, a shared understanding enveloping them all. Sarah felt the unity around her solidify, all these hearts were melding into one. They were here to bridge gaps, to rise against prejudice, and to prove that love could triumph over hate. In that moment, Mrs. Thompson appeared at the door, her brow furrowed but curiosity etched on her face. "What is going on?" she asked, hesitant yet drawn to the light spilling from within. "It's about compassion," Sarah replied, holding her ground. "It's about understanding. We're here to support Eli." "I wasn't sure if I should," Mrs. Thompson faltered, but the emotion brewing within her was palpable. I didn't know how to help." "We can start by listening," Sarah offered genuinely. "No more assumptions, just understanding." And at that moment, they found common ground. Forgiveness and understanding intertwined in the air, and maybe, just maybe, they could shape a new narrative for themselves. The sun's rays poured into the room, illuminating their gathering. A path toward healing, toward friendship, was now visible ahead. In this pivotal moment, hope overcame despair as tears of both joy and release flowed freely. Together, they were transforming not just for Eli, but for the entire community. Sarah smiled, her heart bursting with inspiration. Love is a potent force, after all, and nothing would be more powerful than a community rising together, renewed by compassion. Before they even knew it, they were all superheroes forging a brighter tomorrow. The journey was just beginning, but it promised to lead them to an extraordinary place. Don't miss out. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it really helps. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, we want to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support is crucial. You need to subscribe now, and don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.